Retail traders on Reddit want to push the silver market up to $1,000 an ounce. Is this even possible? Peter Hug, Global Trading Director of Kitco Metals, is here to discuss this. Peter, welcome. We've seen some price action to the upside in silver yesterday. It's nowhere near $1,000 an ounce. Now, I like to ask you about the mechanics of the paper market and whether or not this plan is even possible.
I mean, I don't know how to answer that question. The Reddit post started with, with some of the highly shorted stocks in the industry, and good for the retail investors trying to get back at the big short sellers out there, and they were able to, bring stocks like GameStop, BlackBerry. I mean, just all stocks that probably were valued relatively accurately. Given that we're in the middle of the pandemic and the earnings histories of these companies. But the Reddit posts were able to mobilize enough small investors to get the stock moving to a point where the big hedge funds that were short these positions were taking hundreds of millions of dollars of losses, and they then had to cover their positions, and you got this exaggerated move. Yesterday morning, there was a post on Reddit that there was a major short squeeze on silver, and if all of the small investors came in and bought silver, that short squeeze would result in a price of silver moving to $1,000 an ounce. All I can say is kudos to the small investors that were able to get those shorts to cover on the equity side. My concern is, sort of a story I was told when I was much younger in the industry in the 70s. Involves a can of tomatoes. And there's a bunch of guys in a room, and the can of tomatoes gets tossed from one guy to the next guy, and each guy bids a little bit more. It's a sealed can of tomatoes. And everybody is told that in this can of tomatoes, there is a significant value. So as this can goes around the room, each person bids it up until the last person has the can, and he decides to open it, and the can is empty. So I just strongly caution investors to get involved, and not to get involved, but to be very careful here. Just from a perspective of GameStop, whether the stock was worth $17 or $30, I can tell you it's not worth $550. And it rallied up to 550 yesterday, and then collapsed to 150. And this morning I saw it at about 300. So if you're in at the bottom and you can catch this this sort of frenzy, good. Strongly recommend though, if you get those kind of gains, you might want to consider taking your profits. Little dismal for the investor though that paid 550 yesterday. Now, as far as silver goes, they indicated that they were trying to short squeeze silver. Much more difficult to do because here we're talking about the big global banks involved in the market, and the metals will trade on supply demand fundamentals, and albeit that there is some tightness in the market for investment product for silver. The larger bars, 1,000-ounce bars, we did our own research yesterday, ample supplies available, picking up 2-3 million ounces of 1,000-ounce silver bars, not an issue. So there is no shortage of big bars on the market. The investment size product is a bit in tight supply because the mints have been on allocation because of the retail demand. So I caution, just be careful. I am, from a macro perspective, still very bullish the precious metals markets. I have been for the past 2 months. The silver warrant moved to 2780 with gold still sitting in the 1860 level. Not on fundamentals, but again, from a medium to longer term perspective, I think silver is still undervalued at these levels. So I just think investors need to be careful. If you're buying silver as part of your portfolio that you're looking to hold for medium to longer term, whether you bought it at 25 or you bought it yesterday or at 27 today, I think it's still a good value for medium to long term investors. You just need to be very, very careful sort of chasing the story because especially if you're a trader, if you're looking to trade the silver market, yesterday it opened at 25.20, went to 27.10, dropped all the way to 25.70, and then closed in the mid 26s. So it really depends on what kind of fortitude you have and stomach you have to handle that kind of volatility if you're a trader.
Okay, so Peter, hypothetically speaking, suppose the retail investors were really committed to this plan of pushing up the silver price. Let's say they want to push it up. Now, what would it take in terms of volume of trades to push it up by 10, 15, even $20? What kind of trading volume are we talking about?
It's not so much the volume. It's more it's more what the supply looks like in the market. So I mean, if you had for specific reasons, let's say COVID, come back with a vengeance, and the silver mines start to shut down, and supply starts to get strangled on the market, or there's logistic issues in moving product from here to Europe and vice versa. That in and of itself could have a $5 to $10 impact on the silver price. Just individual small investors buying silver. Again, it would be in the context of there is only so much small physical bars and coins available in the market. So they would have to be buying other instruments to have the impact on that price, be that ETFs or be it futures. Because eventually, with the mints, and there's really only two primary mints in North America, and that's the US Mint and the Canadian Mint, already on allocation, and the dealers already selling product 3 to 4 weeks out, the physical supply of small investment product is already tight. But what causes the price to move is that the dealer market has to go in and hedge that price. So if a retail client comes in and buys 10,000 ounces of silver, the dealer goes and he covers that on the market, and it's that transaction that causes the price to move up or down, depending whether the dealer is liquidating or selling. So for me to say to you, what will it take for retail investors to move this price up $10? It would take, in my opinion, just strictly on a demand basis, them coming in and adding 200-300 metric tons of demand in the current market.
Now they're also moving into the equity side. So just to name a few stocks, First Majestic Silver, for example, closed at about $18 on Wednesday on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Moved up 9:30 a.m. the next day to $22. It's about 22% increase. And so I think the equities markets, or the equity side, are seeing similar kind of patterns as GameStop. I think they're deciding, okay, I think maybe they're agreeing with you. It's difficult to move the paper with the physical market. Let's move into the stocks. Is that what's happening now?
Well, if you look at let's leave Majestic aside, because quite frankly, I don't know if there was a short position on that stock. There might have been a small short position on that, which would have accounted for a 22% move. But if you look at the miners that are more a true reflection of the value of where the silver price is, and there I'm looking at the royalty companies like Wheaton. Wheaton's up some about 12 to 14%, which is in line with a 10% move up in silver. Wheaton will exaggerate the move on silver by anywhere from 2 to 5% on the upside and downside. So when you look at those types of stable companies, the move is reflective of where the price of silver went, from 25.20, up to the 27 range yesterday, an increase of just a little under 10%. For some of the other stocks that went up 22 or 25%, some of the silver stocks, again, there might have been a short position. But bear in mind that silver's held extremely well. I mean, gold got to a high of almost $2,200. Silver managed to hit 29. Gold's down at 18. Last I looked, 1855, 1860 range. And silver's $1 and change away from the recent high, not the all-time high, but the recent high of 2020. So you really have to look at silver and say, okay, is silver really, from a ratio perspective, based on the economics that we're looking at right now, valued appropriately to gold? So you would make the argument that silver might be undervalued still, but I think a better argument would be, is gold undervalued relative silver, or is silver overvalued relative gold? And I think it's the latter at the current macro picture that I'm looking at. So, but when you get this kind of frenzy, you'll get these exaggerated moves. And I wish I could tell you that I think the valuation makes sense. I am bullish the metals going forward. I am more bullish silver than I am bullish gold in 2021. But again, that was based on the caveat that I thought the economy was going to rebound significantly starting mid-year and industrial demand would pick up. I still am of that belief. I think the market might be a little premature on this move.
Yeah, well, I think they're not. I doubt that people are pushing this up for fundamental reasons. Would that concern you? Let's say silver hits your target of mid-30s sooner than you expected for non-fundamental reasons.
Well, again, it depends what you're buying. I mean, if you're the retail investor and you're paying $5 or $6 over for Eagles, again, premiums, as I mentioned last week, are going up on the small investment products because the mints are on allocation. So, if you're looking at silver at, $27.50 and you're paying $5 or $6, so you're already in it at 32, 34. If you believe the Reddit post, it's going to 1,000. It's irrelevant what you've paid for the silver. I just think when you look at the commodity market relative to the equity market, considering the float in the equity market per stock, there is absolutely no comparison. You're not going to get retail to be able to move a market beyond the realm of fundamental logic when you've got the big dealers out there that look at fundamental logic. They are not going to get sucked in and chase this market up. Unless there is, in their minds, a legitimate reason why they see silver at $50 or $100.
I take it you're not partaking in this chase up in the momentum.
Well, first of all, I make it a habit, and I have since the 70s. I don't trade for my own account when I trade for a company. So no, I'm not involved in this market personally.
Yeah.
That said, the move on silver into the 30s, absolutely, totally possible. Again, I just caution if you are an investor and you're not in the market yet, you want to hold a position in metals. Buying silver at 27 is not much worse than buying silver at 25. But if you're a trader, I just caution that you might see a GameStop type of move, or it goes to 550 and drops $400. And then, it's creeping back up today. But personally, GameStop is not worth north of $300 on either a valuation basis or on an earnings basis or even on a futures earnings basis. I mean, there's just no semblance of logic that makes that stock worth $350. Well, could it go to 1,000 given this frenzy? Yeah, but I'm telling you, you're playing with a loaded gun, and you just don't want to be the last guy holding the can of tomatoes.
Last question, Peter. Gold. Why is it harder, more difficult to move gold with this type of strategy? I assume so, just because of the size of the market, right?
Well, with gold, there hasn't been investors generally, they've been engaged in the gold market, but they've been disappointed with gold after the drop from the high in August and the subsequent sort of sideways movement on gold. So gold is relatively well saturated at sort of the $1,800, $1,900 level. And it's $1,800 an ounce, and silver's trading at, was trading at 25, got as low as just south of 24 last week on a trade. And it's relatively inexpensive. So people that want to have a metals component, if they're worried about the equity market and worried about the economy rebounding quickly enough, it just makes it's easier for a smaller investor to engage in silver just because of the price point. And silver has held up extremely well. I mean, it's been at $25-ish, sort of on an average basis, while gold has lost almost $300 from its high. And then you get these types of posts, and people saw what happened with GameStop and BlackBerry and some of the other names out there, and they figure, well, this is real. I mean, I'm going to get in on this wave, and even if it doesn't go to 1,000, it should at least double, and I'll double my money. And it could happen. I'm just saying, be careful.
Yeah, perfect. Peter, I appreciate your update today. Very timely, very important. Thank you very much.
Okay, have a nice weekend. Thank you.
You too. Thank you, Peter. And thank you for watching Kitco News. I'm David Lin.